some of the animals that you can see in Basecamp, you can also potentially see in some of our other ambassador areas, like sloths or binturongs. Some of the cats are the same, but then there are other animals, like these North American porcupines, that you can only see in certain areas. So these guys are only here in Basecamp. We have two. We have Maisie and her roommate, Maple. So this is Maple. I'm probably going to end up calling her Maisie by mistake because I'm actually a Maisie trainer. Peter is a Maple trainer. So usually whenever I'm talking about Maple, I call her Maisie by accident. So Maple is pretty young. We don't have an exact birth date on her because she was actually from the wild. So what happened with her is when she was really small, she had actually got caught by a dog. And when they're really, really tiny, depending on how young they are, when they're born, they're not born with really, really sharp quills like they have when they're adults. So this little baby couldn't defend herself. And so she had to be taken in by Project Wildlife. And they rehabbed her, but unfortunately she was not a good candidate to be re-released into the wild. So we brought her here to the zoo where she is a wildlife ambassador. So she's very food motivated, as you can see, and she was just very eager to work with us, so that's why she fit in well to our ambassador program.
Oh no.
Now, these guys, I almost called her Maisie right now. So Maple, being a North American porcupine, they are the second largest rodents in North America. The largest rodent that we have here in North America is a beaver. And then the largest rodent that we have in the entire world is the capybara, which lives in South America. So Maple is part of the rodent family. However, if you look at her, she has something on her body that none of her other rodent cousins have. So she has something on her body that the beavers don't have, that the capybara don't have. Do you guys see what's on her body?
Spikes.
Spikes, yeah, exactly. So all of these spikes are called quills, and as she turns around there, you'll see on her tail, that's where a lot of the really, really thick and pokey spikes are. We call that the business end. So Peter is kind of able to touch her and lift up some of that hair so you can see some of those quills underneath, because she looks really fluffy, but those are what we call guard hairs and fur. So beneath that fur and those guard hairs are all of the business quills. Now, this is how they protect themselves from predators. So we'll go over how they do that, but first I'll ask, have anybody heard how they use their quills? Has anybody heard that they shoot their quills out at their predators? You guys have heard that? Yeah, okay. So these guys, that's actually a really big myth about porcupines. They cannot shoot their quills, and we'll go over why. So everybody touch your head. Okay, what do you feel in your head?
A hat?
Hair, okay. Now,
hat.
can you guys shoot your hair off your head? No, I can't either. That'd be pretty cool though if I could. So these quills are actually just a modified type of hair. So it's just like the hair that we have on our head. It's just specialized to become these quills. And just like we cannot shoot our hair off of our heads, she cannot shoot her quills off of her body. So what they do instead is if they see or hear or smell a predator nearby, they flare up those quills. So you guys know when your hair on your arm stands up when you get goosebumps? Well, these guys can control that reflex. So with us, it just kind of happens. It's a natural response from our body. We're not really consciously making the decision to raise up the hair on our arms, but these guys can do that on their own. So if they sense something that they're not comfortable with, she's gonna raise up all of those quills. And so those guard hairs are gonna kind of flare out a little bit, and all of those spiky quills are gonna be pointing outward, and she's gonna face her rear end towards wherever that predator is. So that is how she defends herself. And if that predator gets too close, she's just gonna bump into them. And because these quills are just a special type of hair, and just like our hair falls off of our head naturally sometimes, their quills shed naturally. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna bump into that predator, and those quills are just gonna come right out of the porcupine and stick into the predator. And those quills stick into the predator because they have really teeny tiny barbs on the end of them. So imagine if you got a fish hook stuck into your skin. That would be pretty painful, right? So most animals, once they mess with a porcupine once, they know better enough not to do it again, because these guys, the only place that they don't have quills on their body is their belly. So that's what they're really trying to protect the most. So that's why they're spinning around and they're turning around facing their rear end towards the predator. And there are a couple of predators that have actually figured out how to get these guys to spin themselves in a circle so they get dizzy and fall over, and that's how they get access to the belly. But most other predators have not figured that out yet. So being a rodent, she is an herbivore. So you'll see her eating a lot of her favorite treats. She really likes lettuce, as you guys can see. I know lettuce kind of sounds boring to us for dessert, right? Like that wouldn't be a fun dessert for us. But for Maple, she loves it. That's one of her very favorite things to eat is greens. And they also like to eat yam, they like to eat carrot, they like to eat corn. They like to eat a diversity of vegetables, which is actually really, really good for the planet because what goes in must come out. And being an herbivore, when she's eating all of those vegetables, she's actually, when that stuff passes through her body, she's helping to fertilize the soil where she's from. So she kind of helps other plants grow where she lives. Now, porcupines were considered very pesky animals at one point because they're kind of greedy. They don't like to share. So if you have a nice garden or a crop at your residence, they will help themselves to those vegetables without asking. Very rude. So they will eat all of those vegetables and they can wipe out a garden pretty easily because they do kind of graze throughout the evening when they're looking for food. And so a lot of people thought, okay, porcupines are really pesky. They're getting in my yard. They're eating all the food and the plants and the trees. But it was just maybe like 20 years ago or so, we learned how important these guys really were for the environment because just like we don't want to eat the same thing every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, I don't. Would you guys want to eat a turkey sandwich every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Only if it had pickles.
Only if it had pickles. Okay, yeah. Some of us would. So just like we don't want to eat the same thing all the time, the porcupines don't want to eat the same thing all the time either. They like to eat different types of plants at different times of the year, and so they're actually helping promote plant diversity where they come from. Now, she is mostly a nocturnal animal. They can be awake during the day, but they are most active at night. And what she uses to navigate her environment is her sense of smell. So you guys might have noticed when you look at her, she has that really, really big nose on the front of her face. So their eyesight isn't so great, but their sense of smell is really good and their hearing is pretty good. They are prey animals, so usually prey animals will have some of those senses that they rely on a little bit more than others in order to stay safe. Now Maple here is actually pretty small. So our other female North American porcupine, Maisie, is almost twice as big as her. And what we actually learned though is that the wild porcupines that are around this area are actually more of Maple size. They're a little bit smaller. And it looks like Peter is asking her.
She didn't want to turn around, so I'm going to bring her to a more stable spot.
Oh, okay. He's helping her figure out how to turn around and go the other way. So another interesting fact about porcupines is if they can climb straight up a tree, so they can climb straight up the trunk of a tree, but they cannot go head down that tree. So what they do is they actually use their tail like a paddle and they feel their way along that branch and they feel that kind of helps them tell where they are and that helps them navigate kind of backwards down that tree, rear end facing the ground. Does anybody have any questions? I'll take a little break from my spiel. Does anybody have questions I can answer for you about Miss Maple?
Do they ever have like grudges? Or oh, no, that's the other one.
So the question was, do they ever have grudges? So all of our animals, they do have very distinct personalities, especially our porcupines. Our porcupine friends are some of the most opinionated animals I have ever worked with. And some of them are very relationship-based. The most relationship-based one are the prehensile-tailed porcupines. They're the black and white ones that we bring out. They have the shorter quills. They are very particular about their people and their trainers and who they work with. North American porcupines, not quite as much. Maisie has been an ambassador for a very long time, so as long as you have some of her favorite snacks, she'll come hang out. Maple is a little bit different. She is a little bit more particular about who she hangs out with. So, for example, if I was trying to ask her some behaviors, she probably wouldn't want to do the things that I was asking, but she's happy to do them for Peter because she knows him. He's one of her trainers. And now a lot of our ambassador animals here at Basecamp are also part of the breeding program, the species survival plan. And not Maple, but Maisie. We think Maple was too young when we tried to do intros with her into male. But Maisie, our North American porcupine, actually bred with a male that came to visit from the Phoenix Zoo. They had a date, and then they actually had a baby. His name is Dakota, and he actually lives over at Wegaforth Bowl. He's one of their ambassadors now. Oh, so I lied earlier. There are 2 areas now with North American porcupines. I was used to us being the only ones. But also, fun fact about that was the first time that we had ever bred the North American porcupines. And Maisie had a C-section, and that was also the first time that a C-section had been done successfully on a North American porcupine. We're glad that our vets found that out after the procedure, so they weren't nervous before going into the procedure. But we just noticed that Maisie was kind of laboring for a really long time without the progression that we thought should be happening. And so we just consulted with our vet teams, and the best option for everyone's safety was the C-section for her. But she recovered well, and Dakota is doing great over at Wed Bull. He is doing very, very well as an ambassador over there.
I'm gonna go off here. Have a good day.